The lights are off and away they go.
Extremely loose. He's managed to hold on and they get.
He missed the complete. He's crazy stuff.
Side Freitas is on the grass on the infield before. He slides through. He tags Richard.
A state full of affluence and celebrities that has no shortage of variety in its terrain. It seems inevitable that you'd wind up with a great racetrack or two. Sonoma Raceway fits that bill for the NorCal crowd. Not too far from San Francisco and nestled into wine country, this well-known American road course plays host today to round 4 of the Ricmotech.com Challenge, and you'll see it all live here on the Global Sim Racing channel. Hi, I'm Joe Peak, and with me in the booth covering the GTE class is Samuel Ryman. Next to him covering the GT3 class and GTC classes is Sean Ambrose. Behind the scenes is our director, the Dr. Amjad Yamin, and he's using cameras provided by Dougie Beard. Sean, this is one of those tracks that has gone by quite a few names over the years, but for those not familiar, tell us a few of the stats about this place.
Sonoma Raceway is nestled in the Sonoma Mountains in the center of California's wine industry, Joe. The track opened in 1968, and the facility has endured a turbulent history under a variety of owners and track names such as Sears Point and Finnegan Raceway until it was taken over by SMI Speedway Motorsports, incorporated in 1996. Now, Sonoma is on the real-world schedule for both NASCAR and IndyCar, and iRacing offers 4 different configurations of this track, a couple specific for the IndyCar, but this afternoon we are racing on the full configuration with the full extended run into the turn 11 hairpin. Over its 2.5 miles, there are 12 turns that rise and fall over a dusty landscape. But the best way to get an idea of what this place is like is to jump on board the GSRC BMW and take a ride around Sonoma.
All right, we've got Amjad Yamin in the GSRC BMW, so let's do a lap around Sonoma. Turn 1 is going to be easily flat out, but the line here is important because you'll want to swing to the left to help set up for Turn 2. This right-hander is extremely difficult with the curved entry, blind apex, and giant crest as you turn in. From out of there, you don't have much time before turns 3 and 3A. This quick chicane compresses on the first half, and then the car gets pretty light over the second half. It's incredibly easy to understeer wide. From there, a short burst takes you into 4. The over-ambitious will forget about the downhill braking and overcook this one. 5 requires no lifting, and then bring the car off to the right for the carousel. Once again, you'll find yourself dropping in elevation, but now you're also dealing with the G-forces of getting a car to turn more than 180 degrees. It's terribly important to get a run off of here as well, because as we get dumped onto the drag strip, the hairpin of 7 offers one of the few good passing opportunities around this track. Be careful about trying to pull an over-under though. There's a wide double apex, and you don't want to get tangled up by a miscalculation. Now we head into the S's of 8, 9, and 10. These corners will get progressively bigger and longer with long sweeping arcs. The line is all important, and getting off of it will lose you gobs of time. Here in 9, you need to make sure to hold all the way to the left on exit because turn 10 offers some serious dangers. Getting greedy and pushing wide can easily send you into the barriers on the outside. If you somehow manage to stay close to the car ahead, the hairpin of 11 is another potential place to set up an overtake. Be sure to square off the exit for a good launch, and from there, all you gotta do is straighten out the kink that leads you back onto the front stretch. And with that, you've now finished a lap around Sonoma. That's a lap around the hilly terrain that is Sonoma. Right now, we're watching qualifying for the GTC Cups. The Porsches out there just have a minute and a half to go. Right now, Jay Dargert up at the top of the sheet, Sean. But the thing that interests me, only 5 cars in the class out there today. Actually, I take that back. It looks like we have 6 now. And 3 seconds between them. That's quite a spread for such a small field.
It really is, Joe, and boy, that could make that the battling within the class kind of tough with such a spread. Now the qualifying, you've got Jay Dargett there, as you said, on the provisional pole right now. It looks like Bart Workman is done. Overton out there trying to get a little bit faster right now. Let's see, he's put in 3 qualifying laps already, but he is running out of time. This will be his last flyer as he just gets through 7 and 7A. Makes his way up through the snake here and into and around turn 9. He was almost 2 seconds slower than Workman and Dargett, but let's see what he can do here.
Yeah, we can see on our screen 1.3 short of Dargert, so he's got a long way to go to try and improve and get up a position, especially with Workman being only less than a tenth behind Dargert. So as he comes across the line, he's going to have one more lap after this one, I believe, that he should be able to complete. And this lap, he does not improve, unfortunately. And he's not going to take his next lap. He's going to call it quits, so that's going to solidify our top 3, I believe. Hamilton is not out there. Kemmerer is coming across. No, he's coming to the pits right now, and Rick Smith as well. So that's all of our Porsches, I believe, done, except for our pole sitter.
And you saw a glimpse there of all the Mercedes and the BMWs getting grouped up at pit exit, Joe. And as you mentioned here, they are all rolling off. Dexter Castro won the race out. It really looked like a race to get out the pits. They were all revving their engines up, I think, trying to be the first one away.
Slightly bigger field in the GT3, so to be expected that these drivers want to try and get themselves some track position early, as Rocky Garcia makes a bit of a mistake and could be overtaken by Kolthoff. In fact, it looks like he was. But while we're waiting for them to get their laps in, why don't we go, Sean, to the GTC Championship points and take a look where that sits as we've now finished, I believe, 4 rounds.
Yes, sir. Bart Workman there in first for Skidmark Motorsports, and his teammate Scott Johnson only 4 points behind Joe. A little bit further back, we've actually got a good battle between Jay Dargett at All Balls Racing and his teammate Paul Hamilton here in the GTC standings, only separated by 7 points. Ralph Kemmerer, a privateer, is 43 points back from the lead. Workman, we still have several races to go, so nothing settled there, but a couple of good battles.
Certainly, we expect things to be tight. We had some exciting racing at the Porsches, very unpredictable at Monza, as a number of them ran into trouble after leading. It was like nobody wanted that P1 position at the end of the day. As we watch Dexter come around for his first flying lap. Sam, I'm curious, where are you expecting most of the passes to happen? Because from what I understand, this is a notoriously difficult track to overtake on.
It is a very tricky circuit, Joe. I mean, as we follow Dexter Castro around right here, we're actually just he's just making his way around to one of the overtaking opportunities. Not this long left-hander coming up here. It's kind of on the blind crest, although you may see some opportunistic moves there. But this long straightaway that leads back to the twisty portion of the circuit. And as we were watching the Porsche qualifying be spread out, that's a bit of a concern. I don't know if that means we're going to see a whole lot of passing in that class today, considering the fact it's already a bit of a tricky track to pass on. There, we just went through one of the right-handers where you get that run down the long straightaway where there's one passing opportunity. And as Dexter snakes his way through the back section of the course here, the fact that we are doing the full configuration, the run all the way down to this final hairpin that the NASCAR Cup Series drivers use, this is another overtaking opportunity. A dive down on the inside. Problem is, of course, there's a fine line between a dive and a dive bomb, and there may be some contact and hot tempers between some of the drivers, given that we do have a 60-minute race tonight.
We've been seeing a few times start to show up on the sheet, but now we're starting to get representative times, because before those were times since they passed the start-finish line and then had their warm-up lap. Rocky Garcia currently up at the top at a 1:28.4 as they start to tumble in. Jordan Weeks, that's a name I don't recognize yet this season, who is actually almost half a second behind. Rocky Garcia looking a little bit dominant right now here in the GT3 machines.
Yeah, Jordan Weeks, definitely newcomer to us. I'm not familiar with the name either, but boy, a really good pace here to get started. Not much to go there to catch Rocky Garcia, who we know is always a factor in these races. And we'll see what he can do here. Liam Park on screen, willing his mark around. Down there in 6th currently on the board. Got a little bit of time to make there, obviously.
And these GT3, oh, go ahead.
Yes, it looks like 7 of these GT3 cars here, Joe, and only 4 of them have turned to competitive laps so far. So even though there's just half a second between, even though there's a significant half a second between Rocky Garcia and Jordan Weeks right now, we'll wait to see if any of these drivers can fit into that gap. Jordan Weeks was the fastest of the GT3s in qualifying.
There we see Koltoff sitting in 3rd, and Jordan Weeks there going to come around for another lap. Let's see if he improves at all from that 1:28.9. He does.
Ooh.
Takes about 3/10 off of it. Doesn't overtake first, but he's now within 2/10. So the game is on between himself and Rocky. Just a quick note, these GT3 class does have multi-make, and you can see there's the Mercedes, and then we also have the BMW run by Weeks and Dexter Castro.
Now, when I say Weeks was fastest in qualifying, I meant he was fastest in practice. And I didn't correctly predict the future, though, because Garcia's now bumped him, Sean.
Yeah, well, nice to see Weeks in that BMW. Dexter not the only one out here slinging it around, so that's pretty cool. We'll have to keep our eyes on him as he is getting around again. Rocky Garcia, though, the driver to watch on board with him now as he gets around the back part of the circuit here to burn down another lap.
And Sean, I would think that this would be a circuit very much well suited to this BMW. It tends to like fast, sweeping corners as it doesn't have a lot of straight line speed. So do you think that there's any advantage to Castro and Weeks being out here in the Bimmers?
You know, I was thinking about that a bit before the race. I think there could be a slight advantage. Now we'll see. You know, obviously Weeks put in some a good qualifying time. Dexter hasn't really shown that yet. Dexter felt like he was. I did talk to him. He felt like he was a little off here. But yeah, look for the Bimmers to be strong. He's got 2 of them. If those 2 can get off to a good start and work together, they certainly have a chance to take on Rocky.
Dexter's coming across the line one more time here, but I think that may have been a warm-up lap because I know he stopped himself out in turn 1 not long ago, and I didn't see any improvement anyways on that lap. He's currently sitting 4th. Let's see how he can do as the time ticks down. Just about 3 more minutes that they have in their qualifying for this class. As he went off, so that one is not going to count, and in fact, he's pulling off now.
Yeah, and I don't think that's a dent in the hood of his car there. It's got a splash of grey paint over the front, which has been throwing me off in practice and qualifying. It looks like it's been pushed in, but no, that's just the paint scheme he's running with. And so, yeah, as Joe just mentioned, about 3 minutes left in this qualifying. All these guys are grouped in one qualifying session in the sim when there's 25 minutes left. The first qualifying session ended. These GT3 cars are running to 15 minutes left, and then the GTE cars will be running to 5 minutes left when they'll have a quick driver's briefing.
Riding on the dash of Trampus Koltoff, the New Yorker, sitting in third, just about where Weeks was not long ago at 129 flat. He's got 6/10 to try and take the pole away from Rocky Garcia. Less than that to get to the front row, at least within his class. We'll see if he can improve as he works his way through the S's now.
And Joe, that's Weeks right in front of him, trying to put down a better lap.
No matter who gets on pole here, it looks like it's going to be a pretty good fight shaping up between BMW and Mercedes here, Garcia and Weeks. Let's see if Weeks can grab 0.2 of a second. And of course he can't because he's on an out lap, but we'll find out in about 1 minute 28.4 seconds if he can improve.
And Trampus Koltoff behind him did not improve, still sitting at that 129 flat.
Riding on board Weeks, trying to nail all these apexes. These twisty turns in these big cars, it really can throw you off, Joe. Make you put 1 or 2 wheels off in the gravel. Not good news in qualifying. Your time won't count. You can get away with it in a race, so there's no incident limit for the race.
Just got the call for 1 minute remaining for the GT3 class qualifying. Everybody's got to make this one count. Most drivers, I believe, should be finishing up. I think Rocky Garcia could get one more in from here. As our pole sitter is coming around turn 11's hairpin through the final kink. Let's see if he ups that 128.4 as he comes across the line. He does not, and he does not elect to take another lap. So that 128.4 is going to sit where it is for Rocky Garcia, and everybody else is going to have to chase it. Jordan Weeks comes around. 128.651 currently for the BMW. He crosses the line. Is there any improvement? And no, he's going to sit at that 128.6.
Now look at this crowd forming at the end of pit road with Jeffrey Humes leading them off. But boy, they're parked 3 wide Ferraris there. It's like looking at a Ferrari club meet in the exit of a pits now as the GT3s come by to exit their laps. We've still got Weeks. He's opting to go for another lap. He can do it.
All right, second place isn't giving up. He really wants to try and get that pole. Works his way down the hill, through the carousel, onto the ever-important drag strip, up to turn 7. So watch the seconds tick away on that current lap counter. Around the double apex of the turn 7 hairpin, and into the S's now.
This is where you got to be a little brave here, Joe, if you want to try and find a little bit of speed. Heading out of 10. Just really got to nail it and just charge as hard and fast as you can down into there. Brake really late.
He was clean out of 10. Didn't go off track. Nice and tidy into turn 11 as well. Hugs around that apex. Is this going to be enough as he comes to the line? And he does not improve once again.
Right behind him is Koltoff. Koltoff across the line, but he also does not improve, and those drivers are going to have to pull out because the GTEs have just started their qualifying with Jeffrey Humes crossing the start-finish line to set the stopwatch off for his first timed lap. Now we have a 6-car field in GTC and a 7-car field in GT3. This is 12 cars here in GTE, the largest class we have today.
It'll be a little bit more tricky trying to find space out on track for those drivers. In the meantime, let's take a peek at those GT3 points as it's been a bit of an interesting back and forth with those. Dexter Castro leading the way with his consistency. Rocky Garcia got a bit of a late start, of course, and that's put him on the back foot, sitting about 23 points back. In fact, that puts him in a very close fight with 3rd and 4th Collier and Lidke. Very tightly behind them, each of those 3, within about 4 points of one another. Albert Estevez in 5th, about 41 points back as well. So let's with that, let's take a look and see where we sit on the GTE qualifying as drivers, I think, just starting to put their qualifying laps in. I think Eric Ang is going to be the first across the line.
No, Jeffrey Ooms, he was the first driver out on course, and here he comes across the line, and it's not going to be far behind him. That's the first competitive lap time we've seen of qualifying, and it's a fast one, but it's not up top for very long. Paul Darlin goes a tenth faster than Ooms did, and currently holds a provisional pole with 1:26.0. The fastest time we saw in practice was by Humberto Roca at 1:25.5, and he did that in the Ford GT, the minority car in the GTE field today.
Oh, and Humberto Roca.
Oof. Look at that lap. A 1:25.998.
Oh, but look at how tight it is. The gap there up on our leaderboard, 35/100ths between Roca and Darling. I think we could see a fantastic battle here for the GTE lead if this stays like this.
And yet they were both a few tenths faster in practice, so maybe this could be a fantastic fight throughout qualifying. Let's see how much more Roca and Darlin have in them. And this is also Ford versus Ferrari, as I just mentioned. Roca in the Ford GT, Darlin in the preferred car of choice in this class, and that's a Ferrari. However, he's on the back foot right now.
Roca wants redemption after a bad race at Monza. He had a slowdown penalty early on that caused him to have to serve a stop-and-go black flag in the pits, and from there it was all a recovery drive. Jeffrey Ooms, who currently sits in third, was the one who took home the checkered flag. And we watched Darling complete another lap, and he overtakes Roca for the pole.
For now.
Still incredibly tight between them. Look at that, still less than a tenth. Incredible.
And let's see what Roca's got. He's just coming out of a hairpin. Of course, this is going to continue for another 5 minutes. He'll have about 3 or 4 more shots. Roca across the line, up to a 0.8.
Wow. Back and forth the pendulum swings. Let's not also count out Jimmy Hume, who is in there. He's sitting in fourth, also very tight. This top 4, the first 2 rows, are all incredibly close. Look at that on our timing sheets. All within 0.3 of one another.
Yeah, definitely. Boy, really, really tight up there. Joe, kind of like with the BMWs versus the Mercs, maybe the Ford GT, a pretty good choice here at Sonoma.
Yeah, right now it's been sitting on the pole for a couple of the laps. That's traded back and forth with Darling, who is in the Ferrari. Those are our 2 makes in the GTE class. Also, I have a feeling if Bill is watching, he's thankful that he's not having to call this one with a Jeffrey Ooms and Jimmy Hume.
Yeah, I got a feeling that'd be driving
There
my
goes
buddy
Darlin.
a little crazy.
Oh.
Darlin just took it by 0.014 of a second. What
Oh
you
my
got to say
goodness.
to that, Roca?
This is one of the craziest back and forth qualifying battles I've ever seen.
Hope it ends in a dead tie.
All right, Roca crosses the line. Does he go faster?
No.
No!
Yeah, you mentioned about the Ford GT, whether it's a preferred car. Well, Roca's not the only Ford GT here. We also have James Stacey, Peter Hebron, and also maybe Miguel Alcrudo, although he's actually not in the session right now. But Stacey and Hebron are both a little bit off the pace, so maybe this is a car that's a bit trickier for these guys to master at this course, but Roca really has it down.
Here we see Hebron having a bit of an off.
And Darling keeps himself on top with, his fastest lap so far.
Did he improve?
Yeah, he's
I'm
come
sorry,
back out on course,
my bad.
so he'll have
It
enough
flashed.
time for 1 or 2 more laps.
Yeah, it flashed, and I thought that was his time.
Gotcha. Well, Humberto Roca is about to come to complete another lap.
Yeah, I think he was off there. Might not count this time. Now, does Roca want to do what Darling just did and come in for some new tyres? Because if he wants to have some new tyres for the end of this round, he doesn't have a whole lot of time to get them on.
It's coming across the line now. Let's see, and that one, in fact, did not count. So he did have an off out there in the S's. Now, Sean, you and I have done a little bit of work in this Ford. I, of course, ran this car at iRacing's Le Mans race, the 24 hours. And I didn't feel, I don't remember tire wear being a huge problem, but I didn't really get to experience it in qualifying necessarily. So I'm not sure how it performs dropping off from those first 2 fresh laps.
You know what? Obviously, in qualifying, you're running low fuel, and I think there's an optimum time to get that fastest lap. I think it's like your second lap when you're on low fuel, and then after that, I think the tire does start to give up just a little bit. But I think when you're set up for the longer run, those tires balance out a little bit more over the long run. But I certainly think in qualifying, you have a bit of a short life on those, and the more laps you start to put on the tire, it does start to fall off just a bit because you're really pushing hard, obviously, in qualifying. So the temperatures get up a little bit quicker than they would on a longer run, and you're not really in preserve mode. So that could be what's killing someone like Roca right now, who's trying to improve himself as he comes around here. Don't know if that's going to be possible. Obviously, the last one he had an incident. Hopefully, he didn't pick up any here. Let's see what he gets.
25-7.
Okay. I'll shut up
this
now. Back to you.
This is his last lap.
And Darling comes around turn 10, so he's going to get to answer soon. As we wait for him to cross the line, a quick note, we do have a few drivers mixed in with the GT3s, with the 3 classes being a little bit close on pace. That means that Peter Hebron and Andrew Horsley will have to deal with the traffic of the GT3s at the start as Darling crosses the line. And now, whoa!
Wow.
Darling smashes it.
Jeez.
I was going to say that this class was really close. They were all, the top 10 were like within 1.4 seconds of each other. Darlin and Roca kind of checking out on them though right here.
In fact, Ooms does not improve as he just crossed the line. He stays in third. Time is now up, so everybody's on the flying lap can finish.
Yeah, and Roca will be the first one, and of course once Roca crosses the line... Oh, and he's off. So I think that seals the deal for Darlin pretty much, unless anyone can pull out a stunner.
I think Ooms gets one more try. He should be on a flying lap here. He's coming around the carousel right now, down onto the drag strip. At Gulf. Oh, and he had an off, so he's going to stop the car. So Ooms can't answer. Jeffrey Hume is not out there. Victor Tanaka's not out there. I think that should be it for all of our top runners, waiting to see the rest of them to come across and finish up their times.
Yeah, the only 2 still on track are Topich and Stacy. I think Stacy had been letting a couple cars by though, so I won't be surprised if he comes in, but it will be interesting to see if Topich can improve. He worked a little bit late today, so didn't get to do a whole lot of practice. He was disappointed with his time in practice. He has gone about a second quicker in qualifying, but right now that's only good for 7th. Can he jump up aboard?
He's coming across the line now, 126.8 currently. And he bumps it up by 0.2 to a 126.6. That's going to move him into 6th. Nicely done. Last gasp by Dino Topich. And with that, let's go through our we'll hold off on the qualifying order. Let's go through our point standings, actually, Sam, for the GTE class.
Yeah, well, Jeffrey Ooms has been able to extend his points lead after the last race with the victory there, and now you see there he has 20 markers over Paul Darlin in 2nd place. Well, Paul's going to see if he can claw any of that back today, considering Darlin has qualified on pole and Ooms will be starting in 3rd. And then another name we've been talking about in qualifying, Humberto Roca in 3rd place there. These 3 really going back and forth. Now then we get to Victor Tanaka. He's 4th in the points. However, I think he's going to have his work cut out for him a little bit today, having qualified 5th. And then we get to Dino Topich there, who is 5th in the points. All these drivers quite close. I know Jeffrey Ooms has a 20 points advantage, but if you discount that, it could get bunched to back up in a hurry, especially if Ooms has a bad race. He's going to want to find a way to break into that front row of Darlin and Roker at the start of a race.
And there is a team's championship in this series as well, so let's take a peek at how that sits here as we look at Skidmark's Motorsports well ahead of the rest, looking a little bit dominant this season. Puffin Racing, the next one down. I'm not sure they're as worried about catching Skidmark as they are holding back Can-Am Racing. Only 2 points between them for that second position. All Balls Racing sitting in 4th, another gap back down to them. And then Ricmotech, Delta Ford, of course, well down the order. And we're very early in this season, of course, so drivers will have quite a bit to think about as things progress and whether or not they can help their team move up the order. With that, we're going to take a quick break here on the Global Sim Racing channel. We'll come back with the starting grid here for the Ricmotech.com challenge. Welcome back to Sonoma Raceway. We're here to watch round 4 of the Ricmotech.com challenge, and we are ready for our grid. So let's go through our starting order. Paul Darling, after an incredible back and forth, managed to best Humberto Roca by 3/10. after they were so close for so many laps. Roca starting in second, and then row 2 starts with Jeffrey Ooms. Jimmy Hume will start in 4th, followed by P5 with Victor Tanaka. Dino Topic starts in 6th, and then in 7th, it's Eric Ang. Samuel Scott will start the race in 8th, and James Stacy will be 9th, which takes us to our GT3 field. Sam?
Yeah, so the front end of the GT3s here will be mixed in a little bit with the tail end of the GTEs, with Rocky Garcia on pole position for that class, but he starts ahead of Peter Hebron, who he won't really be racing for position, although they'll be in proximity on track, and hopefully they'll be able to avoid each other and race their own races, because second place in GT3 class is Jordan Weeks, who will actually be 2 spots on the grid behind Rocky Garcia. Trampus Kolthoff will be in 3rd ahead of Dexter Castro, 4th place in class. Then we get to another GTE, Andrew Horsley, and then come the rest of the GT3 class with Jason Lundy, Liam Park, and Drew Lidke. Drew Lidke with a 1:31.4. That is just 3 seconds off of Rocky Garcia's time, Sean.
Your GTC class this evening, Jay Dargett will be starting there at the front. Bart Workman. Then you got Matthew Overton there, 3rd best in qualifying. Paul Hamilton, 4th quickest there in the Porsche. Ralph Kemmerer, 5th. And Rick Smith, rounding out your 6th Porsche 911 of the year in the GTC class.
Want to make a small correction for myself. This is round 5 here today at Sonoma, not round 4, so apologies if I've mistakenly mentioned that earlier on. We have a full pace lap here at Sonoma, then we will go racing for 60 minutes. This is a sprint format for this series, and we do expect at least 1 pit stop out on track today with these 3 classes. So we have to ask our traditional question. We'll go to Sam first for the GTEs. Who's your pick today?
Oh, it's kind of hard to say with what's been going on between Paul Darlin and Humberto Roca in qualifying. However, Darlin really did smash that lap time at the end of the session, and I've just got to have a feeling the fact that we have so many Ferraris here, I don't know if that's just driver preference or if they sense a bit of an advantage with that prancing horse at this twisty track. I wonder if in the long run having the car of choice is going to pay off for Darlin, and he'll be crossing the start-finish line in 1st place after 60 minutes of racing.
Sean?
Joe, boy, in the GTC class, I think Bart Workman's going to be hard to deny. I look for him to probably take this one tonight.
As for in the GT3s, we saw Rocky Garcia look mighty powerful last time around. I would not put a bet against him. It's a safe one, but sometimes you got to go with what seems most likely. As we ride on board with the roof pace car, seeing our GT3s actually backing it up. And it looks like actually they did not manage to separate them there. You can see that Ferrari is mixed in amongst our GT3s. So they will have at least 1 car there. I believe that is Andrew Horsley that we can see. It looks like Peter Hebron may have been able to separate and get away from these guys and start at the tail end of our GTEs.
Yeah, Hebron's lucky there because he would have started in a different row than Garcia, so he can afford to do that. The problem is for Horsley, as you mentioned, is he's starting in the same row as some of the GT3s in front of him.
There you can see our GTCs as well bringing up the tail end. Charlie coming through turn 7 right now. They will have a separate start as the gaps imply. They will not be allowed to go until they reach a certain point. As the pace car peels off into the pit lane, something else these drivers will have to have had practice with. We'll talk about that in a bit. Paul Darling is going to lead the way to the line, waiting for the green flag. It comes out. And we go racing here in the Ricmotech.com Challenge. Darling didn't get a very good jump over Roca. He could have the inside down into turn 2. Oh, and a big spin from Darling from out of the lead. That's going to give it to Roca as they all make it through cleanly, except for Darling. Let's go to the GT3s.
Well, Darling's going to have his work cut out for him. Garcia hasn't gone the loud pedal yet to start the GT3 race, but now he does, and he has a nice gap over Weeks, who actually took a separate line, despite the fact Weeks was meant to start alongside, or rather behind Garcia. He took advantage of that other lane being empty, started alongside, and we've got contact at the back with Jason Lundy and Liam Park. Sean.
Boy, with the GTC class coming through too. One of those GT3s there sitting off to the side, and the other one pulling off the track, letting the GTC class through. But it was Dargett getting off to a tremendous start. Workman, though, taking advantage of that little bit of slowing down there for the traffic, has now reeled him in, and Dargett and Workman start to fight as they work their way down the hill through the carousel here.
Now, Sam, let's take a look at this replay of Paul Darling on the start. That was unexpected. I mean, what do you think happened here for him to throw it away just like that right at the beginning?
Well, the easy answer at the start of a race is cold tyres. Track temperature is only 90 degrees, so it's not exactly the hottest temperature these tyres have ever raced on, and just that little bit of a left-hander kink. You're doing so much right there. You're turning the car left and getting it set up to turn right. You're getting off the gas, getting ready to get on the brakes for that hairpin at the top of a hill, and I guess it was just too much for the car.
Well, the Michigander is back out on track, and he's not the last of the GTEs out there. He's ahead of Peter Hebron right now, and he's trying to hunt down James Stacy. Boy, the pole sitters in the past two races have not had a good start. Last time it was Roca who saw problems that affected his entire race, but right now it's his competitor, Paul Darling, who runs into trouble. In the meanwhile, Roca is under threat from Jeffrey Ooms.
Yeah, not much between them. So the two big losers on the opening lap were the collision behind Paul Darling. Liam Park is in the pits, and I think Jason Lundy may be out of a race. But the big winner, I think, on the opening lap, as far as this GTE class is concerned, actually confirmation on Jason Lundy's lost the connection, is Victor Tanaka. He started in 5th position. He's already up to 3rd, but he's off. And, well, we put a couple of wheels off. I have a feeling we'll see a lot of that through that turn 11 today.
Certainly wouldn't put it past them. It come through there at a rate of knots, and there's not a lot of runoff on the outside as well, so drivers do need to be careful as we watch him complete another lap. The weird thing to me about that GT3 start, Sean, was that when I went back and looked at Lundy's replay, he didn't seem to have a problem. He just pulled over and stopped in the middle of the corner.
Yeah, he could have started to have a connection issue there then. I'm watching Koltoff on screen right now. He was having a little bit of trouble with Andrew Horsley trying to get by in his GTE, and those two were mixing it up just a little bit, and finally Koltoff decides to go ahead and give way and let him go down there in the hairpin in turn 11.
Koltoff, of course, sits in 4th in his class. You can see Horsley down the order. In fact, I think the last of the GTEs running right now in 11th. Koltoff will hope that he can start to streak away with it from him so that he doesn't get held up and can try to go and chase down Dexter Castro, who holds down the last podium spot in the GT3 class.
Yeah, I think, Sean, though, and I was trying to mention this at the start of the race, but there's a lot going on. The fact that Hebron was able to start with the GTEs, I think, was really a gift to Jordan Weeks, because instead of starting behind Garcia and also having to worry about a GTE car in front of him, he could start alongside Garcia and just pull right behind him at the start of the race, and that's where he finds himself, and now he can just pace himself behind Garcia and try and plan a way, perhaps even through the pits, to try and get that top spot.
So we ride on board with our second place GT3 Weeks. Oh, and Tanaka has a problem in turn 2.
This is 3rd victim of the day already.
In the same corner. And in fact, it looked somewhat similar to what we saw with Darling here, where the car starts to swing off to the left when the track turns right. He doesn't hit the wall. He's able to get the Ferrari back and going once more. Unfortunately, now he's in 9th. Speaking of Darling, though, he's overtaken James Stacy, and now that he's gotten past Tanaka as he was spun on the side of the road. He's up to 7th and trying to hunt down Eric Eng.
Oh, wow. Andrew Horsley just ran off the track there. Where was that at? That was in turn 3, right in front of Trampus Kolthoff. Remember, Kolthoff had just let him get by. Yeah, we do have it on the replay. Let's look at this. It was Dexter Castro in the front of your screen there.
And once again, turn 2.
Yeah.
Now, Dino Topic was talking a lot about how the prancing horse name really befits this car around this track, and turn 2 seems to be a big instigator of that.
Joe, a huge battle between 3 Ferraris at around 5th place here. Samuel Scott and we're watching Dexter Castro right now. But I'm watching the 3 Ferraris being led by Scott, who spins. Samuel Scott spins at the top of a hill, and boy, a top 5 position in GTE is not where you want to be early on today.
Is that Ferrari number 4 we've seen spin in that same spot? Those cars must be getting just incredibly light on entry.
Okay, we had a couple of things happen here. Something happened with Dexter Castro. We're going to go back and have a watch that real quick, and then we'll take another look at Samuel Scott. But Castro's been moving up the order very early on in the race.
Yeah, this was down into turn 7. He got a run on Weeks coming out of the carousel. Just set this one up perfectly. This was almost textbook to me. No, actually, Weeks slowed down.
It sure looked like he did, and Dexter goes round the outside.
Huh. Not sure what's going on with Weeks there. But Castro now 2.5 seconds behind Rocky Garcia, our leader, and the GT3s. But we haven't looked at GTC in a while. Right now, Jay Dargert still your leader, but not by much. Bart Workman holding him accountable there, less than a second behind.
He really is, and while everybody behind them continues to just fall off, Workman is, well, he's doing his job. He is really getting after it right now, and I picked him for a reason. I've watched him a little bit in practice. He does seem to have Sonoma figured out. The question is, can he does he have enough to get around Dargett when he gets to him? I think he does. Right now, it's early, Joe. Plenty of time to be patient here. Just keep him at arm's length.
Another one of our GTCs, Ralph Kemmerer, had a problem coming out of turn 2 just a bit ago.
Yeah, a bit of a... and we'll watch on the replay here. I think you'll also catch Paul Darling having a bit of an off. Remember how I mentioned we had 3 Ferraris racing in the pack for around 5th place? Well, Paul Darling was one of those as he's trying to rally his way through the field. So you see Camara's mistake at the top of a hill here. And we're not catching it from this angle, but right behind him, Paul Darling had a bit of a scary moment, because as he's trying to work his way through slower traffic, he goes off course, but able to keep control of his car.
Yeah, that gave Dino Topic a bit of a scare, but both of them able to continue. Darling now actually only 2/10 behind, hunting down the Canadian as they work their way into turn 11. Boy, that 155 of Darling has made short work of this GTE field.
They're all spinning out for him. See, Darling's advantage here is he got his spin out of the way on the opening lap. I'm watching these Ferraris every time they come up this hill, see which of them's the next one to go.
They've got traffic they're working by now. This is Rick Smith and Jimmy Hume.
Well, Jimmy Hume third in class. Oh, in contact with Smith. Smith spins. Topic keeps it on course, keeps the position for now. But how much damage does he have?
Gonna keep an eye on this in case there is a pass, but that was incredibly sloppy between all 3 drivers. Unfortunately, a bit of miscommunication, it seems, with classes maybe coming at an unexpected point. Here comes Darling, though. Got to run on Topic. Trying to find his way past as Topic weaves back and forth, figuring out which line he wants into the corner. Takes the inside in the end.
And look at Tanaka behind. We get a rear view there. Tanaka and Enga are just about... It's just about a hairy battle back there for 6th place.
This is 2 teams, each battling amongst each other in pairs. As Darling got a little bit loose on the entry into 10 and lost a little bit of space. Coming up to 11, elects not to try and send it in.
All right, put your money on which one's going to spin on turn 2 here.
It's 4 Ferraris. Can all 4 of them get through this treacherous blind corner? Topic leads the way in 4th. Coming up around turn 1, now into the braking for 2. A little bit off the apex, but doesn't give up the position. They all stay in order. Topic, Darling, Ang, Tanaka.
Rick Smith is forced to come into the pits for repairs as Topic goes off, comes back on, maintains the spot.
Oh, and behind them a big nose in for Victor Tanaka on Eric Ang, but he denies him. Somehow they still stay in order. I thought for sure.
Topic drifting through the entry of a turn there. Boy,
that car's struggling.
Yeah, it's his position though. Darling wasn't able to get a good enough run on him because Topic was blocking the whole track.
Ooh, and I think it looked like Darling outbraked himself just a little bit, was trying not to get into Topic once more, as Ang then had to try and keep out of his teammate, and side by side, Ang comes together with Tanaka, and into the tires they go with a hard slam.
Yeah, Ang I don't think he wanted to battle his teammate Darling there, so he kind of backed off, but the problem is that just makes him pray for the Ferrari behind, and this really isn't a place where you can go side by side.
Just lost control at a horrible time as they are trying to continue, but we're looking at a replay with Dino with traffic. Oh, this is what kicked it all off here. You can see this is why Darling did not expect him to slow, is there was that Porsche right in front of him, and the bump is what caused him to basically shunt him out of the way.
Yeah, Tanaka's got back to the pits and he's got heavy damage, but N's car is driving so terribly it's going to take him a while to get back. Tanaka, I mean, despite the fact his Ferrari has a lot of dents on it, it's still driving, but you see N just hobbling over the gravel there. I'd be surprised if he can get that back out today.
Incredibly, in all of this, Topic has not given away 4th. Darling's still fighting him for that. They return to turn 7 once more.
I'll take it all back, of course. They do get 1 free repair, so Eng will be able to get that Ferrari repaired.
Glad to see we'll have a few cars still driving. In all this excitement, we've missed the battle for 2nd and GT3.
I've been watching it, Joe, and Weeks is starting to reel in Dexter. He's now going to try and get him here in the carousel.
Oh, sorry, we got to go to Dino Topic. A huge moment happening here between him and Darling in traffic. And almost gets into Topic once again. Darling trying desperately to stay out of the Ferrari. That was Bart Workman. They made contact with as Topic was trying to sneak on the inside of turn 10. Somehow, they all come out the other side of that one. Let's look at the replay.
Let's not forget that Workman wants to keep his pace up because he's running 2nd of the Porsches right now, so he's got his own race going on.
There we saw that. I'm sorry to cut you off there, Sean.
No, it's okay.
Got hot in a hurry. Oh, and Topic has turned around. Something happened once more. Looks like himself and the leader of the GTCs, it was Dargert.
Oh, boy.
Darling got into Topic after that. We're going to look at the replay. This is in the same spot that we saw Darling get into the back of Topic. Once again with this GTC traffic, tried to go side by side, just did not work. And there you can see the T-bone that Darling had into the Canadian.
Another angle of it here.
From Darling's view, just nothing he could do.
Yeah.
Writing down the, trying to keep track of a top 5 in GTE is like trying to keep track of Henry VIII's wives right now.
Poor Sam is working overtime here in this race. We're already a quarter of the way through as we look at Jeffrey Ooms up in front of all this mess, who's been running in 2nd, keeping Roca in sight. And I think we've got a chance finally to go back to that battle for second in GT3, Sean, because Castro and Weeks still close.
Yeah, it is, Joe. It's still very, very close. And Weeks has made a couple of runs at him, but Dex has made a couple of defensive moves. Nothing really, that upsetting. Oh, Dexter slides it a little bit there in the hairpin. Ooh, yeah, a bit of an opportunity there for Jordan Weeks to finally try and get it back to come across the line. Dexter's got it, but they got to go up the hill, and they got to get around turn 2, which has been trouble for everyone tonight.
Oh, and this time it's Weeks' turn to slide as he goes way off the apex through turn 2. Doesn't lose him that much time, though, as Castro holds on to that second position. And all this battling is just helping Rocky Garcia corner after corner, who is now 4.5 seconds ahead of this fight for P2.
Yeah, they haven't had the pace to really compete with him yet, Joe. I thought maybe they'd work together, those BMWs, to get together and do a little work, but really it's been a combination of both of them overdriving a little bit, made a couple mistakes here and there. It's allowed Rocky to continue to just kind of move up through the field. Now, traffic has helped out a little bit, too. When those GTEs came through a little while ago, it did separate them just a bit. But definitely a good battle going by these two right now.
Talking about coming in, Dino Topic coming into the pits. I wonder if this is late enough to be a scheduled pit stop here in his Ferrari. Now, we also have Victor Tanaka in the pits. Recall, he was in that incident not too long ago, but he is allowed a free repair. I'm surprised he hasn't taken that. Meanwhile, James Stacey, who's running 5th in GTE, has just had to spin. Now, was he able to maintain the position? Because Dino Topic was the driver who was behind him and would have been able to capitalize on that. Well, you see our live timing and scoring there in the bottom left of your screen now. Says he has dropped to 6th. So that means Peter Hebron, the driver who was meant to start in the middle of a GT3 field, has actually worked, well, at the front of a GT3 field, has actually worked his way into the top 5 in class just because this GTE race has been crazy this opening 20 minutes.
Mistakes aplenty. Go ahead, Sean.
I was just going to say, Hebron just got past James Stacey to move up to 5th.
Yes, because Stacey had the spin. So he was able to go by while Stacey was off course there.
Stacey, the latest victim of turn 2, which has caused so many incidents for that GTE class, most notably the Ferraris, which don't seem to like that corner. And, interestingly enough, Stacey in the Ford.
Coincidence?
I don't know.
I'm scared to give Jimmy Hume a shout out for just having a quiet race in 3rd. If he spins, I won't talk for the rest of the broadcast.
All right, well, speaking of giving a little bit of screen time to drivers, let's give Dargert a little bit of time where he's not being knocked around by faster class traffic. Credit to him, after all those problems, he's 6 seconds ahead of Bart Workman. That's no mean feat.
Yeah, and you know what? Getting through that traffic was just as rough on, well, maybe not quite as rough on Workman as was Dargett, but it seemed to rattle Workman, and he's just not been able to make any of it up. Now, of course, Dargett is working. You see the damage on the hood of the car. The right front with a little bit of aero damage. It does not seem to be affecting his pace too much. He was, just about 1.5 seconds faster the last time by over Bart Workman. So, again, Dargett still having a solid run regardless of the contact.
Meanwhile, looks like we're going to have a fight for... Oh, Rocky Garcia, our leader in the GT3s, having problems, and so does Paul Hamilton in the GTC class. Both of them able to get it going once again. Garcia had a huge gap, but that has now all gone away as Castro and Weeks are ahead of him.
Yeah, you saw as he was rejoining the circuit there. Our live intervals on the bottom of your screen showed it was like 4 seconds there, 3 seconds here, 2, 1, and then right when he rejoined the circuit, there go the guys who were in 2 and 3 are now 1 and 2.
Yeah.
Rick Smith had to take evasive action heading off the track, had a little bit of contact with Rocky Garcia, actually.
Meanwhile, Paul Darling, one of our GT leaders, into the pits.
A little bit frantic so far in this race. Darling, you can see now coming out. 40 minutes left to go. He should be able to go until the end, barring any more craziness happening and maybe getting some damage, which I really wouldn't put out of the question the way things are going.
So, sorry, guys. Dexter Castro just had a big moment in turn 2, of course, top of the hill. Oh, and a car off in front of him. Weeks gets off the course. All kinds of craziness going on here.
That's Bart Workman who's off.
And the GTCs, who is in second and still in second because of the huge gaps between cars in that class, didn't lose anything. Still, the fight for the lead is on in the GT3s because Castro is being hounded by Weeks as they come up to turn 7, and they've got traffic trying to get through as well. That's Dino Topic and the Ferrari try not to get in the mix of this. Way wide for Weeks, tries to swing it back in, stays out of Dino Topic. They're gonna go too wide. This has not been good before. Through the S's, Topic backs out of it, almost gets into the back of him, and he does! Into barriers he goes.
I wonder if Topic could have been a little bit more patient there, but the reason Topic really wanted to get by these guys, of course, is because he's already made his scheduled stop, and he doesn't want to lose time to the other GTE leaders behind these guys.
You see the replay from on board the Canadian, making a lot of friends today out on track. That hands the lead over to Dexter Castro by a much bigger gap.
Yeah.
Now about 3 seconds over Rocky Garcia.
And unfortunately, that results in a pit stop for Jordan Weeks. Pretty good damage on the back of that machine. Dexter now 3 seconds over Rocky.
Then we saw Ralph Kimmer have to avoid the 2 cars of Garcia and Topic streaming through at turns 3 and 3A. He managed to get the car back on track. Kimmer currently sitting 5th in the GTC class out of 6 that started.
James Stacey in GTE has served his scheduled stop. Not even at the halfway point yet. I have a feeling we're seeing a lot of early stops from drivers who were involved in incidents, maybe to get their free repair, just to get their cars handling well for the second half of a race.
Boy, Topic really pressing here with Dargett. Oh no! Contact with Dargett.
Dargett in the wall. Topic in the wall too.
Wow.
That was our GTC leader. Workman is still coming through. He hasn't lost the lead yet, and Dargett is trying to get going. We're going to watch the replay. I'll keep you up to date on how that goes. You can see once again trying to go too wide in the S's just does not work. Too many cars have tried this. And the battle is on for the GTC lead. Dargett now only a second ahead of Workman, but he is probably thanking his lucky stars that he had built up as big of a lead as he had.
Yeah, well, it's all gone now because there's Bart Workman right behind him. Wow. Now that's the second time Topic has tried that through there, Joe. Yeah.
And the second time it's gone south, unfortunately.
In the slow Ford GTE you saw on pit exit there was Peter Hebron. Remember, Peter didn't exactly have a pace in qualifying, but had been able to get as high as the top 5 through other people's mistakes. Now in the pits we do have Dino Topic doing repairs. The thing I'm worried about Jay Dargett right now, Sean, is yes, he had a huge lead. He had the faster car, and he was able to rejoin in the lead. But does his car have any damage? And if it does, then all he needs to do simply is serve his scheduled stop now, get that damage pulled out, and hopefully once all the stops are cycled through, he'll be ahead of Workman still.
Well, like all of these drivers, he has the advantage of having that fast repair. And Sam, if I was him, I'd definitely take it. The front end of the machine pretty bent up. He's got wing damage on the rear end as well. So definitely want to get the most out of that car to the finish.
As we ride on board with second place Workman, a bit of an update. Looks like Dino Topic has ended his day. He's disconnected. So the Canadian will not take part any further in this race. Watching this battle for first in the GTC, we didn't think we'd get much of a fight, but it's starting to look a little bit like Monza did here, Sean, with the leader just not able to keep away from trouble.
Not the safe place to be. I think I'd want to be in second or third right about now. Honestly, I mean, this has been really, really tough, especially for Workman. I'm sorry, I meant especially for not for
Dargert,
Workman, but
yeah.
for Dargert, yeah.
Workman lets the car of Hebron go through, tried to give him a little bit of room of apex of 2, and that cost him a lot of time up to Dargert. Kind of don't blame him. There's been a lot of argy-bargy on this GTC class. Speaking of which, right behind them happening is James Stacy sneaks on the inside of Paul Hamilton and somehow doesn't plow into him.
You're seeing that damage to Dargert's car and why he's kept it out there. Of course, this isn't the most aerodynamic dependent of road courses, but I still have a feeling you want an intact car because of how many corners there are. The car might corner a little bit better if there's not any damage to the chassis, as they're letting the Ford GT by here. Actually, a couple of GTE cars going to separate the top two.
That's Stacy now trying to get his way past Dargert, but wasn't able to. Now as they come through the S's, these GTE cars have a lot more downforce than the GTCs. He should be able to work by here, but he's being followed through by the car of Ang, and he's managed to get by successfully.
Workman back here being passed also. Jimmy Hume getting by. Caught him in a good spot there. Oh, almost makes contact.
And that was for position, actually. Hamilton in third is caught up to Workman.
You know what, Joe? I was not paying attention, and you're absolutely right. Where did Hamilton come from all of a sudden?
I don't know, but boy, things have gotten very intense up at the top of the GTC field, because look at that now. Top 3, all within about a second. Dargert, Workman, Hamilton.
Yeah, it's because this is where all the traffic is. I'll tell you right now, if you'll spectate on the other side of the circuit, you're just seeing one car go by every 2 seconds, and then this pack comes around.
Looks like Dargert's been caught by Workman once more. Hamilton dealing with the traffic of Lidke, who decides to back out of it, though Hamilton stays wide. Ooh, cuts back a little bit late. And they come down to turn 7. All of them a little bit too far apart to attempt to pass this time through, though.
I almost wonder if drivers in this pack will opt to pit to get out of it.
You know, honestly, I feel like that's not too bad of a call, Sean.
No, I'm with you, Joe. I don't think it's a bad call either.
The driver I'm keeping half an eye on is a driver who hasn't really had any traffic for the past few minutes, and that's Paul Darlin. We remember he was the fastest qualifier but spun early on in the race. Ever since he made his early scheduled stop, he really hasn't had any traffic to deal with, and I wonder where it'll pan out after all of these stops have cycled through.
In fact, right now, Darling is our highest pitter. He's 26 seconds back from Hume in third, but Hume has yet to stop.
Yeah, and Hume actually just got held up by Andrew Horsley, another Ferrari who's a lap down to him now. Horsley has been off at turn 2 the last couple of laps running.
Hume has a huge gap up ahead to Ooms at 27 seconds.
Oh, Dargert just lost a lot of time to Workman because he was letting the Mercedes of Lidke go by, and that allowed Workman to run him back down again as Garcia, our lead in GT3, comes into the pits.
Watching that fight for first in the GTCs, the blue car, the Stars and Stripes is Dargert. Workman behind him in the PSP machine, trying to see what he can do. And in the popcorn position, we've got Hamilton.
Who wouldn't mind finishing in the Hamilton position? Okay, I'm sorry. Now, hey, back to GT3 just real quickly. We talked about Rocky Garcia coming in. He was really starting to close on Dexter Castro. Okay, so that's a big deal because he decided to come in and pit. Castro stays on track. You know what? He's only going to be faster when he comes out. So I'm wondering if maybe Dex needs to get that car in ASAP.
Well, Garcia comes out behind the car there, but it's Jimmy Hume, one of the fast GTE drivers. So in theory, Hume should actually pull away from Garcia here, and Garcia shouldn't have much traffic to deal with. though it does actually look like he's catching up with Jimmy.
And we jump on board the Mercedes of Garcia. Last round was an easy win for him. Going to be a little bit tougher this time here at Sonoma. Interesting things might be happening in GTC soon because they are actually coming up on traffic of their own class. Ralph Kemmerer about to be lapped by the leader Dargert.
Yeah, Kemmerer I've seen off a few times today, Joe. I wonder if he's one of those...
And there he goes again.
Yeah, I wonder if he's opting to do this to let the leaders... Oh no, his car's pointing backwards. Yeah, it's not doing that.
That's a very interesting method, Sam. You'll have to tell me more about that as he pulls out just ahead of the car of Samuel Scott, who gets by cleanly. Things are a little close farther down in the GTE field as Eng, Stacy, and Hebron are all very close in position for 6th, 7th, and 8th. They're actually currently behind our leader in the GT3s, Dexter Castro.
Yeah, Hebron actually with Stacy and Eng behind him right now in GT as well.
Car that went off course with Masoud Overton, letting them get through, being lapped. As they work their way down through the carousel, Hebron got himself a little breathing space away from Stacy. Eng, though, pulling up behind him. And Stacy goes a little wide, stays in it, doesn't lift. Gonna hold to the inside, down defensive into turn 7, side by side into the corner. But I'm not sure if Eng is going to be able to pull the over-under, and he's not.
Yeah, now Stacy, Eng, and Garcia, he's in a different class, but he's behind him for position. These are all drivers racing for these positions right now that have already picked. So it'll be interesting to see where they... Although, as I say that, Eng comes in. I think this is his second stop.
It might be, actually. Yes, I believe. Remember, he had to get damaged repaired.
It is his second stop, guys.
Yeah, so when he was getting that damage repaired, then he must have come in too early for him to be able to make it to the end.
So this is his scheduled one. In the meantime, James Stacy very much all over the backside of Hebron as they hit 3 and 3A. Wow, very wide. Card over the curbs for Stacy. Brave in that Ford. Garcia with a problem behind them, though. Into that very corner, turn 3. Let's look at the replay here.
Joey's all by himself there on track. And, man, he just loses it.
This is interesting. After he looked so flawless at Monza, we've seen mistakes, we've seen problems for Rocky.
Battle for second in the Porsches heating up again. Bart Workman just had to let the Ferrari of Eric Eng by, and that allowed Paul Hamilton to close him right down again.
Dargert's trying desperately to let the car of Eng through without losing a lot of time, and he successfully does it through turn 6. So the battle behind him is no longer a worry as they've dropped back. Workman stretches a bit away from Hamilton for now.
Everybody's seemingly starting to work a little bit better here between the other classes, Joe.
We have had a fair number of DNFs. We should mention Jason Lundy, Victor Tanaka, Jordan Weeks, and Dino Topic are all out of this race. Lundy and Weeks in GT3, Tanaka and Topic in GTE. I'm not sure if we had a development happening here.
Yeah, Humberto Roca has run into a little bit of traffic here, but his gap over Jeffrey Ooms has actually increased a little bit to 3 seconds. And as I say that, Ooms comes into the pits.
Our winner from the Monza round. Looking for his pit stall in this somewhat unusual pit lane. which has 2 kinks in it, as well as that hairpin pit entry. And Sam, we've had so much action, we haven't really been able to talk about it. That is that the pit limiter doesn't come on until way late, so drivers really have to work on that entry.
Yeah, I'm curious to see where Ooms will get out in relation to Hume. Now, Hume, of course, hasn't pit yet, so they won't really be racing each other. But the fact of the matter is there were 33 seconds between them, and as Ooms comes out, as a matter of fact, Hume is going to be right behind him, but I have a feeling Hume will just back off. He knows that Ooms has stopped, he's not actually racing him. The thing is Hume is less than 33 seconds ahead of Paul Darling. So I think we're going to see Paul Darling move into 3rd place once Hume comes in to make his scheduled stop. And that's Rick Smith we see off course there.
He was just letting them through. And indeed, Hume is the teammate of so he really does not want to hold him up. He is going to be happy to stay stationed behind.
Workman in.
All right, so some of our GTC leaders starting to execute pit stops. PSP Insurance Machine coming down to pit limit speed.
Yeah, and that was Workman. The top 3 had not pit yet. That's a quick one for Workman. He's in and getting his service.
Could this be a strategy call that tries to get him leapt ahead of Jay Dargard? He's been chasing him for most of this race. Speaking of which, we had a bit of a problem next to Dargard, and that's Hamilton. Humberto Roca, our overall leader, stuck his nose in a little bit later than Hamilton expected, and you'll see down into turn 4 here, Sean, it got him turned around slightly.
It did. Luckily for Hamilton, it's just a little bit of damage on the right side. He's able to stop it right there in the middle of the track and get it going again quickly. Boy, but the last thing you need is something like that, especially when you're that close to making a pit stop.
I wonder if Workman saw Roca come in on these interval screen and made the stop to avoid a situation such as that, because this obviously is going to help Workman out when Hamilton comes into pits. He might find himself a few seconds behind Workman once it's all cycled through. And as I say that, Roca comes into the pits, maybe he got a little bit of front end damage and he wants to get fast repair, just to make sure his Ford GT is still looking nice and shiny for the victory lane photos that he hopes he'll be getting in about 20 minutes from now.
And Jay Dargard pits, but he looked a little slow on that hairpin entry. He might have lost some time there to Workman. We'll have to watch and find out.
I mentioned Workman's come out with not a whole lot of traffic.
Now, Jeffrey Ooms was the one racing Roca. Roca's still stationary. Now he's taken off as Ooms comes across the line now.
Yeah, Roca, though, from qualifying in 2nd place, he gets an early pit stall, and so he's already up to speed. Of course, the nice thing about that short run to the top of a hill is you don't have to worry about the speed you're losing in the run between turns 1 and 2 on pit exit.
Now, Jay Dargard did manage to get out ahead of Workman, but only just. There's about a second between them. Hamilton is yet to pit, so he leads temporarily in the GTC class.
Yeah, Hamilton definitely playing the long game right now. It's been a pretty good race so far for Paul Hamilton. Kind of came out of nowhere on us there to jump up into the top 3, and now he leads this race.
Unfortunately, he lost time with that incident with Roca, though, so do not expect him to be a factor with these two for the lead after pit stops unless something miraculous happens.
There's GT3 leader Dexter Castro right behind him here.
In the meantime, Liam Park just exited, and I think that was after some contact that he had with Trampus Koltoff into turn 7. And that was with a mess of GTE cars coming through as well. Got the replay up on that incident. Not sure if this was for position or not here. We're going to see one more time on the replay. This is coming down to turn 7. That red machine is Liam. And then just behind, there's the contact there. Almost turns him around, and he just pulls off the side, decides he's had enough for today, unfortunately for Liam. Our next and latest retirement here in this race.
Kolthoff is off, and Hebron reacted, went off behind him and into the wall. Made very light contact, but he's losing a lot of time.
I actually think Hebron made that mistake on his own independently. It looked like just a little wide, and the dirt got on and made that 4GT's tires loose. Nice job blowing that car up, though.
Yeah, boy, that was really, really close, guys.
That looks like one of those target fixation issues where you're kind of watching the car ahead of you, following it, and when it makes a mistake, you copy them.
Hamilton's in, guys, in the GTC class.
Once again, another slow pit entry, it looks like, from these Porsches. I wonder if it's easier for them that way.
I do believe they have a pit limiter on those machines, right?
Yes, they do, Joe. Just picked up Jay Dargett as we watch Hamilton come in there. Dargett now coming into the hairpin.
Dealing with a little traffic in the form of Peter Hebron.
I think he's going to get by here. We'll see. Hamilton's rolling.
But he's got a long way to go up this pit lane, and Dargett is through.
Hamilton, will he actually lose second? Yes, he does. There goes Workman by. Hamilton had that big moment a couple of laps ago, didn't he? It's not as far behind Workman as what I thought.
Yeah, I'm a little bit surprised by that as well, but Hamilton wasn't very close to Dargett as well, so he might have had some problems with traffic that put him a little bit back, or it could have just been raw pace. Remember, Dargett had quite a lead in qualifying over the rest of the field. Up at the front, Humberto Roca has extended his gap impressively over Ooms. It was 1 second after the pit stops. It's now 5.5. Last driver in that field yet to pit is Jimmy Hume. He's coming up to the pit entry right now. Is he finally going to... Yes, there we go. All right. This should give us our podium here, as Darling is actually very close behind, so he's going to easily overtake him. So how about Darling spinning on the very first lap in quarter number 2, recovering what looks like at least to be a podium finish.
Yeah, still not going to help him in that championship fight against Jeffrey Ooms, though, who comes in the championship lead and will, at this rate, looks to finish ahead of Darling.
By quite a margin as well. 18 seconds I'm seeing between himself and the Canadian Ooms. We had lots of close action for position for the first half of the race, but all of that has taken its toll. And we now have most cars at least 3 seconds apart from one another. The one difference being GTC, which stays relatively close up at the top.
And we've got Dexter Castro on screen right now, who is now passed up an opportunity to pit again. Joe, we've got just now under 16 minutes left. Dexter Castro still has not taken a pit. Now, I want to give you an update here because Travis Kolthoff is behind him 32.5 seconds. Okay, he has not pit yet either, so we know he needs one. Rocky Garcia has taken a pit. He's 43.5 seconds back now. Rocky Garcia's pit delta was 38.7 seconds. That was from the time he hit the yellow line to the time he exited the pits. It's going to be really, really close, I think, by the time Dexter comes in and gets that pit stop. Expect his stop to maybe be a little bit shorter, but how much shorter, I'm not sure. We'll see. It's going to be really, really close when Garcia is starting to come around, when Dexter finally gets into the pits here.
Rocky has not been without his own problems. Remember earlier on in the race in turn 3 where he spun it out all on his own. That cost him some time, but does he have the pace to come back from that and reclaim that lead? The strategy has all made it a little bit unclear, but hopefully we'll be able to see it soon. Our leader in the GT3s, Dexter Castro, is now coming through turn 10. Let's see if he finally elects to come in with only 15 minutes left. And he does not.
Dexter doing the definitely playing the long game here. He figures as long as he can stay out in front of Rocky Garcia, the longer the better here, I guess.
We see Drew Lidke, the number 21, excuse me, in and out for his scheduled pit stop. Oh, and the GTC lead up for grabs. Jay Dargert under threat from Workman now into turn 7.
Biggest
insurance
fan.
Machine not able to get by.
Biggest fan of this battle, of course, is Paul Hamilton. The more these two trade position or run side by side, they'll hold each other up, and Hamilton only 3 seconds behind.
Certainly has an outside shot here, Sam. Hamilton's just got to keep digging. Workman, though, really giving Jay a mirror full right now. Jay's certainly probably feeling the pressure just a little bit.
They work their way through the hairpin. Had a bit of a problem with Dexter Castro, not worth going to, where he dealt with some traffic that cost him time. That could have implications later down, knowing the close fight that he's in with Garcia. And here's Trampus Kolthoff finishing his stop.
Yeah, back out on track in 3rd place.
Ooh, very close moments with Rick Smith, who narrowly avoided him. I'm not sure if we got that on screen as we switch to Rocky Garcia in 2nd now. Might be worth a replay from onboard Smith here into turn 2.
Meanwhile, give you an update on Castro. He stays out.
We see getting onto the binders, losing a little bit of control and managing to stay out of that tri-star of the Mercedes.
Workman continues to be behind Dargett in the Porsche class here for the battle for the lead. He's close enough where if it was the final lap, Sean, I wouldn't be surprised if he attempt to dive at the end of the drag strip, but it's not the final lap yet.
Yeah, maybe try and make something happen down in turn 7, or maybe make something happen down here in turn 11. Here we go. I think it's a little bit too far to make something happen right now. Workman, though, still has 12 minutes here, just under 12 minutes to get it done.
Well, soon they're going to have a problem that Paul Hamilton is dealing with right now, and that's called Trampus Kolthoff, because his Mercedes is going to want to get by them, and that could break that battle up.
Indeed, traffic has played a major part in most of these drivers' races. I expect that could cause Workman to get an opportunity down the line if he stays patient and holds close. Meanwhile, Dexter Castro finally comes in for his stop.
Yeah, it's going to be very, very interesting to see what kind of stop he has here.
Almost spun it on pit entry, actually, getting that last burst of gas before he had to turn the pit limit on at the cones. The rear end stepped out on him.
Right now, Garcia is heading through the S's. This is going to be very tight. Hits his stall well. Garcia now through 10. Castro still stationary. Now Castro's going.
Boy, short stop for Castro there. Only 9.8 in the block.
Do you think that's enough on fuel, Sean?
I think he'll be okay. Yeah, I do, Joe.
And he's out well ahead of Rocky Garcia.
That's never a good sign when it comes to fuel mileage races.
We don't know how much time it cost Garcia, though, with his spin. So it could have been flattered by that put him back a few seconds. There's 7.5 between them on the track as it stands now. With that final pit stop of pretty much everybody except for, I believe, Ralph Kimmerer has yet to take his stop, but he's far down in the GTC field. In fact, he takes it right now. So, with that, let's go through the top 5 in each of your classes. Roca, leads the way. Much needed after the disappointing race at Monza. Despite his great performance there in Italy, is only looking at possibly second here today unless something big happens. He's 6 seconds behind. Paul Darling, it had to be a recovery drive. He smashed Roca in qualifying at the last minute, but threw it all away. He sits in third. Jimmy Hume in fourth, well down, about 30 seconds back from the podium. And then Samuel Scott, there's a name I don't think we've talked about hardly at all in the GTEs. A nice run to a top 5 for the Ferrari driver. Let's go to the GT3s with Sean.
All right, and in the GT3 class, Joe, right now we've got Dexter Castro still leading the way. Hanging on here after that pit stop, Rocky Garcia now 8.5 seconds behind him. Rocky sitting there in second. Trampus Kolthoff now in third, and Drew Lidke in fourth. Liam Park, Jordan Weeks, and Jason Lundy have all taken their cars behind the wall, Joe.
High attrition rate in these GT3s. Sam, what's the GTC field looking like?
Jay Dargett was just able to open up his lead a little bit as we continue to watch his frantic action up the front of the GTC field, and that's because of the leaders coming by in the other classes. Samuel Scott, you mentioned a great first name to have. Samuels always do well at everything there is, and Dargett gets into the side of Horsley. That does not cost him the lead though, because Bart Workman had been losing a lot of time with this traffic, and there was enough time for Dargett to run off course. Hopefully it hasn't damaged his Porsche too much. We'll get a replay of it here, and boy, if it has damaged his car, if he does have to go back to the pits, he's got half a lap to go.
No, I think he's good. I think Dargett's going to be able to make it. He's proven he can drive a damaged car this evening. He's got some bright front damage again. Got about 8 laps of a clean race car, and now it's all bent up again. And here we go. He's having a battle. Bart Workman.
Yes,
only half a second.
Interestingly, that happened directly in front of our overall leader, Humberto Roca. Got a windscreen full of that frantic action, and then navigated his way past. Once it sorted itself out, he's actually lapping the car of Andrew Horsley right now.
Yeah, so third in class oh boy, is Jeffrey Hume. Second in GTEs, trying to navigate his way through these leaders. But yeah, rounding out the top 5 in this class is Paul Hamilton, Matthew Overton, and Ralph Camara. Ralph Camara, one of the drivers we've seen struggling today, but looks like he'll still be able to make it to the finish. 6 minutes left to go.
Joe, is Dargett worthy of a Dory Award, maybe?
Can you get the Dory Award and win the race? That would be a first for us, I feel like.
Maybe today you can.
Well, he hasn't won it yet, because look at Bart Workman sticking his nose in at turn 4. Oh, this is not over by any stretch.
No, and Workman locked him up there, Joe. Boy, that was close.
Dargett saw it coming, gave him a little bit of room at the apex. Ooh, look at him gain coming down the hill, though. Is that damage, in fact, hurting Dargett? Great run by Workman. Does Dargett stay defensive? Holds it to the inside, down into turn 7. Workman trying to come around the long way. Has to cut back in, gives up on it on that second apex.
Look at that number in the bottom right of your screen. Hamilton closing in, Sean.
Yeah, I was just about to say something. Remember that guy? Here he comes.
Workman starting to put the pressure on now. Wants to take that win. Our winner from last round isn't even here this week. Scott Johnson in the GTCs. After that, lead swapped back and forth between a number of drivers there in Monza. This time it's mostly been held by Dargett. Now only 5 minutes left to go on the clock. Workman's going to run out of opportunities if he waits too long. Could be why we're seeing a little bit more desperate moves from that PSP insurance machine.
Honestly, Joe, I think that's as desperate as we saw him all evening, so look for another desperation pass here, possibly.
Oh, trying to go around the outside, and they come together. That swings him wide. Here comes Hamilton up on him.
Oh,
He's
boy.
able to get back onto the track, but Hamilton has the speed. Slips to the inside through turn 5. It's going to switch back into 6. They're still side by side. Deeper onto the brakes goes Workman. Gets ahead of him. Both of them smoking down through the hill. Workman recovers and gets back into 2nd.
Yeah, Hamilton had lost a lot of time when he'd let Darlin by. That was poor Darlin forward, but actually battle for 2nd is on again.
Hamilton takes another look, but can't get it done in 7. Let's try and pull up the replay while we hopefully have a little bit of a breather. But boy, looking at this, Sean, it feels like Dargert is possibly damaged in his handling as well, because there's been a few corners where Workman just closed on him very easily.
Yeah, and it's got to be just a little bit of damage that's really affecting him now. But boy, what a great job there by Workman at just hanging on to it, not running all the way off the course there. Now Darget's starting to pull back away from these guys, and Workman's starting to pull away from Hamilton again.
Obviously, the lap times are a bit thrown off that time around because of all that action. It will be interesting to see when they come across the line next time by how much time Workman is able to eat out of Darget's lead, if any, during a round of 1 lap, because they won't have any traffic this lap interfering with them.
Indeed, the next car back is James Stacy, and he has a significant gap to get up to this battle for first in the GTCs. 3 Porsches, and they are the same 3 we've seen all race long, fighting to get the win in their class now as they come up to turn 7 once more.
Meanwhile, Humberto Roca is coming up to the start-finish line, and he crosses it with about 2 minutes 40 seconds left on the clock. 1 minute 30 a lap. That means we've got 2 laps to go.
Roca looking unfazed. Go ahead.
Garcia has hit the wall hard.
Oh boy, yeah, he sure has.
He rejoins the track, but that's going to cost him some speed.
Oh yeah, no, the car is really hurt. Here it is on the replay.
Not a spot I would expect for him to lose it coming out of 5 there.
But that's kind of odd, wasn't it,
He
Jeff?
hasn't lost any positions yet. He might be able to salvage 2nd.
No, he stopped.
Without hood.
He stopped on track, and he exits. It's over for Rocky Garcia. After looking at possibly a podium, it has gone south for the Mercedes driver. As we watch that replay one more time, a hard hit into those tires. That frees up Dexter Castro with a huge gap over Trampus Kolthoff.
And it moves Drew Lidke. Yeah, Drew Lidke. Yeah, we hadn't talked about him much, have we, Joe? He's now on the podium.
What a strange race for the GT3s.
Just for the GT3s?
True.
Well, it's almost about a finish, because Humberto Roca is coming through the final turn to take a white flag.
Workman still trying to pull this off, Joe.
I'll keep half an eye on Roca. We'll go back to him when he's finishing, but we need to keep an eye on this battle for the lead in the GTCs, because Roca, with a 9-second gap, is not under threat from anyone. They have been able to get away from Hamilton about 4 seconds there, so traffic must have gotten in the way, and that could have been in the form of the car that we're seeing right now trying to sneak through. That's Stacy going down the inside in his Ford. Dargert trying to direct him through. Lets him by, but he slows. Oh, at a critical point, and that allows Workman to come up behind him. Up into turn 2, but he can't do anything with it.
Jeez, this is great.
Massive battle here, but it looks like much clearer sailing for Humberto Roca, Joe. He's coming through the final couple of turns.
He enters turn 11 now, hits the binders. This is the redemption that Roca needed after a disappointing race at Monza. This time, no such mistake to set him back. In fact, a little bit of luck helped him here to take the win at Sonoma.
Last passing opportunity, Sean.
Oh boy.
Oh, he backs off. Workman really
Does.
backs off there. I wonder if he's trying to do an over-under.
No, because he didn't take to the line.
There he
Instead,
goes.
he gets some momentum coming off the corner. Oh, don't go too wide through here. We know what happens as multiple times cars have come together through these S's. Holds right there behind him. We don't
Gonna have
have
one
to worry
last
about
chance.
Castro right now. He's well behind these two. This is the battle for the lead in GTC as Dargert stretches away at a critical point coming up to turn 11. Oh, but he brakes early and way late on the brakes for Workman.
Oh, here comes
Puts him back. And Dargert takes the win in the GTCs.
Workman did everything he could. And Castro coming around the final turn right behind them. He'll take a win in GT3. He had a bit of action early on, but a nice race since then. A well-deserved win for the driver for number 13.
With that, we're going to take a breather here on the Global Sim Racing channel. On screen, we're going to have all the upcoming races here on GSRC. And after that, we'll have the unofficial results as well as driver interviews. Don't go away. Welcome back to Sonoma Raceway. We saw a fascinating one between three classes here in round 5 of the Ricmotech.com challenge. In the end, though, Humberto Roca managed to take the win. It wasn't without at least a little bit of pressure from Jeffrey Ooms, but we found out in the chat afterwards he had a couple technical problems that caused him to lose the time there at the end and finish that 9 seconds back in second position. Paul Darling rounds out the podium. He spun on turn 2 after taking the pole in great fashion. Unfortunately, Recovery Drive was only able to get him up to third. Jimmy Hume, nice run by him, a little bit quiet, but fourth place was good for Jimmy. And then Samuel Scott finished in fifth. James Stacy, the next Ford on our list, coming home in the 6th position. And then Eric Eng had his share of problems, of course, and he finishes in 7th. Sam?
Yeah, then we get our GT3 top finisher, Dexter Castro, taking the win there, as well as Peter Hepburn is actually the next driver behind him. He's in the GTE class. Trampus Koltov finished 2nd in GT3 and 10th overall. And then we go to the podium position on the next page here. Andrew Horsley was also in GT. Drew Lidkey took a podium position in his class ahead of Rocky Garcia, who of course had that crash towards the end of a race. And just to jump down the order, rounding out the GT3 field will be Liam Park, Jordan Weeks and Jason Lundy, and also we have the GTE cars of Dino Topic, Victor Tanaka and Miguel Alcudo did not finish, but all of the Porsches made it to the end, Sean.
All right, yes, and let's go to that very important Porsche class. Jay Dargett with the big win there in the GTCs. Bart Workman fought him all night. We'll have to settle for second. Paul Hamilton. What a run by Paul Hamilton and a great podium finish for him. Matthew Overton going to finish 4th. Ralph Kemmerer kept it strong out there. He'll finish 5th. And 6th going to go to Rick Smith. That was another pretty beat up Porsche out there. He found a lot of trouble, but he did finish the race, guys.
So with that, let's go to our interviews. Floridian driver Humberto Roca was our overall winner today. Sam's going to talk to him about that race in the GTEs.
Humberto, when you went to the Ford car salesman at the start of a race, did they say, this car will not spin out at turn 2 at the top of a hill, and that's why you chose to drive it today?
Yeah, it's been a struggle with this car for the last couple of races, but yeah, finally managed to win.
Yeah, now of course you entered this race 3rd in the points, and not only is this a good win for you, it's a great points day. Do you think it would have happened had Darlin not had that spin on the opening lap?
It could definitely be a different race. I mean, this track is very difficult to pass, it's very narrow, traffic plays a big part of the race, and it could have been a lot different, but unfortunately Paul just locked the brakes and lost it.
Yeah, well, it wasn't just Paul out there. We saw a lot of drivers spinning and a lot of drivers having trouble with interclass traffic. How difficult was it? I mean, on the timesheets, it looks like a good race for you. You won by 10 seconds, but I mean, we even saw you getting mixed up with lap traffic out there at times.
Yeah, I mean, traffic overall was okay. Definitely I had a couple of moments that could have been avoided by certain cars, but it's a difficult track, like I said, especially if you have the GTCs, which are much slower and their braking point is way earlier than ours. Just makes it a lot more challenging for all of us. So that's why maybe it played a little bit more of a difference between everyone, just because there were certain parts that was impossible to pass. So
Alright, so in a couple of weeks we go to the Circuit de Gilles Villeneuve in Montreal, Canada. Do you think you can continue your winning ways there and try and close up on this points lead to Jeffrey Ooms and Paul Darlin?
Yeah, I'll try my best. Like I said, I always, ever since I've been in CMS, I've been trying new cars, and this one by far has been the most challenging one. It's been a hell of a ride up until today that I won, but it's a very difficult car to drive. I haven't figured it out yet. This, fortunately, I've tweaked the setup a little bit different than before, and we'll see what happens in the race.
All right. Well, congratulations on your victory, Humberto. We look forward to seeing you again next time.
Thanks, guys.
Up next, we have our winner in the GT3s, Dexter Castro. That, of course, was not without its share of problems, of course, as pretty much every class experienced lots of traffic. Dexter, I'm sure you knew going into this race that this was a tough track for traffic, but did you expect it to be as chaotic as it was?
To a degree, I expected a lot of chaos. I was absolutely not satisfied with my pace. I just have no comfort in any of the GT3 cars lately, especially the BMW. I only drive the BMW and Merc, but I'm not really particularly comfortable in either of them right now. So I was not satisfied with my pace at all. But I knew I still had a chance because of the attrition. Just because I feel like I've said this in interviews before. I always feel like anytime there's traffic. Or anytime there's multi-class traffic, I always feel like that's an opportunity for me because you just take a calm approach, and I went through the whole race. I think I only had 2 sort of awkward moments that cost about 5 seconds. The rest I think went just about perfectly. So there was a point where Roque pitted early trying to undercut me, and I was if he got within 35 seconds behind me, I was going to come into the pits to cover him. But he just never got within 35 seconds because every couple of laps he'd lose 5 or 10 seconds. When that gap keeps on getting bigger and bigger, then I can take it easier and easier while he's having to push harder and harder, and it's just compounding it. So it really everything after his pit stop was pretty much just managing the gap.
Well, and in fact, after Garcia had such a dominant performance at Monza, does this sort of give you a mental boost going into the rest of the season? Do you feel like you can maybe wrestle this championship away from him, or do you feel like he'll have the pace on you at a number of tracks?
Well, I feel like he'll have the pace on me at every track because this is pretty close to, for the remainder of the season, I'd say the only track perhaps better than this one for the BMW remaining would be Motorsport. So it's and even that I'd say is a pretty even at best for us right now. And that's with the cars, and he's probably a faster driver than me anyway. But in this case, sort of unfortunately for the sake of the championship, and also fortunately for me, I've got a 1 race head start on him because he missed 2 weeks and there's only 1 drop week. So we'll see if I can hang on to it. I think I'm going to need at least 1 more win to hang on to it if he wins all the other races.
So a question for you then, because we're all very familiar with your devotedness to this BMW. What car would iRacing have to add to the GT3 field to make you put your eyes on someone else for once?
Well, really, I'm kind of feeling a little burned out on GT3 in general lately. It's just none of the cars really feel the way I want them to feel in GT3. I can sort of tolerate the Mercedes, but even that's just bouncy and a bit strange. So it's I think if the BMW is still in the field of GT3, it'll be my GT3 of choice. But I think I might be stepping away from GT3 after this season, just because it's it's too broken right now.
I noticed that you didn't answer the question though.
Okay. Well, yeah. Well,
Pick of any GT3 car you've seen used anywhere.
Anywhere. I have to say that the Z4 is among my favorites. If they replaced the Z4 with an M6, I would not carry over to the M6. I would probably find something new. Probably the Mercedes, since it's basically just a Z4 with a little extra weight in low downforce trim. So I don't know. There's a lot of interesting ones. I mean, I haven't driven them, but it would be probably have to be something front engined, long nose. Maybe the Aston GT3 might pull me away from it if they added it, but there's a lot of interesting ones.
We'll have to see if a Viper GT3 ever existed for you to drive if you like.
As a matter of fact, it did, but I'm not a fan of the Viper, so that might be an exception there.
All right. Well, that was Dexter Castro, our winner in the GT3s, who will forever stay devoted to the Bimmer, at least until he's tired of GT3. So with that, let's go to our winner in the GTC class. In the Porsches, we have Jay Dargert.
And never have I seen a winner take such abuse out there on the track that Jay Dargert did today. But Jay, you persevered and you get a win there in the GTC class. Tell us a little bit about what it was like trying to get your Porsche around the track today.
You know, fellas, I knew this track was going to be a pretty tough track, although it's one of my favorite tracks of all of them. I like the technical aspect of this course, how you got to be very spot on your marks. But yeah, had a couple incidences with a particular driver, and he just tried to pass in places that you really don't pass on this course. You got to back off, similar to how Bart did when guys got by. Bart and I got separated by 3 or 4 seconds, and then when their turn to pass me, Bart would catch back up. So just takes patience in these things. Porsche's fun to drive, and it's a good class for us old guys to hang out in.
Jay, you made just a couple of small mistakes there on those last couple laps. Did you really think it might all end for you there? Workman was putting a lot of pressure on you, man.
Yeah, he was, but I could tell where he was going and what he was doing. So I protected the inside line each time on that, and I made a couple of shifting mistakes, and then one turn-in mistake, and he caught right back up. But yeah, I just kept an eye on him. I knew that if I kept him behind me or to the side of me, I could beat him in through the corners. It was an outstanding race with the top 3 in our class. Paul Hamilton, as what do you guys call him? Honey baked Hamilton. Yeah. We had a great race with him. So all in all, the GTC guys, we have a great time, and good racing among all of us really well.
And actually, all of you finished. Everybody in the GTC class finished, unlike the other 2 classes. So there you go. That's where the quality racing is at, Jay. You get the nail on the head, buddy. Congratulations.
I appreciate it, guys. We've led a lot of laps this year, and just had rotten luck hit us just about on every track. And I almost thought it was done for here again, but we persevered in this one.
Well, thanks for giving us a great show tonight, Jay. We'll see you next time, buddy.
You got it, fellas. Thanks for having me on. Do appreciate your work.
Joe, Sam, that was Jay Dargett. I think we've got one more person to talk to. I think Joe is caught up with James Hume.
Yes, Jimmy Hume finished just off the podium today, but his quiet race, I think, is worth mentioning because you're probably one of the few that seem to have a quiet race out there, Jimmy. Did you have any sort of action with the traffic that everybody else seemed to?
No, honestly, it was like a Sunday drive. I was hoping to use it to my advantage because I definitely didn't have the pace. Umberto, found the magic in the Ford again because there was no touching him tonight. Jeff was having some problems. Jason Lundy had some problems as well. But and in fact, I kind of feel out of place right now because we had 2 second-place finishers on the team and they sent the 4th-place guy to represent them. So I don't know how that works.
Well, I still feel like you should be proud of yourself. You started 4th. You finished 4th, which means you didn't lose anything out there. I guess the big question everybody wants to ask you is, what is the secret to staying out of the way or keeping from running into trouble with the traffic here if you feel like this was a quiet one for you?
I think it's kind of like a mutual respect thing. It's part of the beauty of league racing, in my humble opinion, is that you drive with the same guys week in and week out, and you kind of get a feel for where you can and where you can't really stick your car. And I do have the advantage of driving the GTC in the DGFX league on the side as well, so I kind of know what these guys are going through with high horsepower and low downforce, and you really have to give them room, but. As long as everybody stays on their line and kind of plays nice to give a little room, proof's in the pudding, I guess. I don't know.
It certainly is. You had a fantastic race today, and congrats on a 4th place. Sorry to cut this one a little bit short, but we are ready to close up here today. So again, that was Jimmy Hume in 4th and the GTEs. Before we go, of course, we want to thank a few people. Thanks to Ricmotech.com for sponsoring this series, and of course, thanks to Miguel Alcrudo for organizing. Also, big thanks to the companies that provide the software and hardware for our broadcast listed here on your screen. Additional thanks to Eric Ekholm and Casey Lalonde who provide our wonderful music. See the screen for how to get a hold of more of their great work. Thanks to the team today, Amjad, Sean, Sam, and Dougie. If you'd like to find out more about GSRC, including upcoming races, you can find it at globalsimracingchannel.com, or you can check out our social media on Twitter at GSR Channel or Facebook at /Global Sim Racing Channel. The next race, boy, if you thought this one was tough on cars, they're at Montreal. That is going to be punishing. That'll be Wednesday, September 6th at 9:45 p.m. Eastern. We also have upcoming races for other series listed on the screen, so check those out and mark them down on your calendar. However, until next time, race clean, race hard, and we'll see you on the track.